From the latest on Caribbean cruises to kosher safaris, pilgrimages to Jewish Eastern Europe, and award-winning wines and international cuisine in sun-drenched Tel Aviv. Sit back and enjoy the trip with the travel edition of the Jerusalem Post podcast.
Hi David.
Shalom from Tel Aviv, Mark.
Yes, and shalom from the IMTM travel exhibition. David, what does IMTM stand for?
I was about to ask you. So it's something like the Israeli Mediterranean Trade
Tourism
Market.
Mart. Nobody says Mart. I've got a friend called Mort.
Oh, okay. So what do you do when there is a war situation ongoing in Israel? There's a lot of tension. There are issues at the moment, unfortunately, around the world for Jewish people travelling. There are travel warnings all over the place. You put on a travel fair.
IMTM has been going for 30 years. This is the 30th anniversary of IMTM.
Wait a minute, if it's been going for 30 years, is this the 31st or the 30th?
It says IMTM 30. Now, I don't know whether they count 2020, which was cancelled. No, 2020 happened. 2021 was cancelled due to COVID. So our first exhibition was only 3 years ago.
Well, we've only been on the road for 3.5 years.
Yes. And we were going to come to 2021, but we did it online instead and got a very lovely trip, our first ever trip to Yas Island in Abu Dhabi, which you can listen to.
Do you remember which podcast number that is?
7? I don't know.
It'd be so funny if it's right.
I have to say, I walked into the room, David, and I was surprised given the publicity of the event and what was going on, and this was a talk of a rebirth of Israeli tourism, how small it is. Now, I know we're coming up for 6 months after the start of the war. There are still hostages. There are still people dying every day. But this, as the tourism minister announced, was going to be all about the rebirth of tourism. It's a very, very slow rebirth.
To be honest, when we come to IMTM each year, what we actually look forward to, Mark and I, is not so much the Israeli half of the exhibition, but the foreign visitors, those countries that are trying to promote travel and tourism to the Israeli market.
I thought you looked forward to the wineries.
No.
The Israeli wineries. I can't stop you going there sometimes. And the sweets. They'll have nice free sweets on their stands.
For Americans listening to this, it's candies. On a serious note, from a travel perspective, normally there are, a couple of dozen foreign countries represented at least?
I think last year there were nearly 50.
And that is, at a time just after COVID, there was still some uncertainty about travel. Unfortunately, right now, looking around this room, we can pretty much see out of the corner of one eye the international representation here. It's very sad, it's very depressing, and the space that is being used, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Fair enough, is considerably smaller than what's normally used in a regular year.
Yes, I think they've definitely drawn a curtain around half of the exhibition hall. But it's also in the middle of the exhibition. There's usually 2 or 3 countries that are giving a big push. So last year was Turkey.
There's been Turkey. Morocco did a big thing.
Morocco. All of these new countries.
Azerbaijan are always here.
Yes, and Azerbaijan are here this year as well. Mm-hmm. But normally each country has a big central stand, and they will have hotels and local tourism authorities from that country all taking seats in that stand, meeting people.
So is there a political element here? Not just as in now is not necessarily a good time to come to Israel and promote your country, etc., especially because the number of Israelis travelling is still down. Even though it's on the up, we've got about 40,000 people travelling through Ben Gurion every day, but it's still way down on normal numbers. But is there a political element? So, for example, Romania is represented here. The Czech Republic is represented here. These are countries that have stood by Israel over the last 6 months diplomatically. Is that what we're seeing a reflection of here?
I'm looking out there. There were a few plastic chairs and a table, and they seem to represent El Salvador and Panama. They're very, very loyal supporters of Israel. Mm-hmm. I think what we've seen in the previous years are countries that were new markets for Israel, post-Abraham Accords, but also, you would have representatives from Spain and Portugal and maybe Scandinavia, France, Italy. I don't think it's political. I just don't think the traffic is there at the moment. And even though outgoing tourism is up to 60-70% of the levels it was beforehand, like with airlines coming into Israel, they're not leaving their staff here overnight. I don't think the tourism companies want to bring their people here while it's considered not safe.
So what we're going to do during the course of this podcast is talk to some of the people who are here, whether they are from overseas or from Israel. We'll bring you some of those voices and we'll intersperse it with a bit of Mark and me talking about the situation of tourism for Israelis and Jewish travellers, both here in Israel and around the world.
And I have found a winery, so we can at least visit that one stall.
Hick.
To talk the latest news in Israel, the Jewish world, and everything in between.
This is the J-Post Podcast. I'm Tamar Uriel-Beery, Managing Editor of JPost.com.
And I'm Tzvika Klein, Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Post.
And I'm Sarah Ben-Nun, Night Editor at the Jerusalem Post. Join us as we bring some of the most impactful voices to bring you into what it means to be Jewish, to be Israeli today.
Every week, we bring you with us into the newsroom in every sense.
Stop being so dramatic. This is just our coffee break.
You can find us every Thursday on jpost.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll see you there.
Yalla, bye.
We're outside for the opening ceremony of IMTM. Gathered outside, there are a large group of what look like tour guides holding up signs referencing the Tourism Minister Haim Katz. I'm going to talk to one of the people outside now and try and find out what's going on. Can you introduce yourself?
Aviv Jasmine. I'm the owner of a travel company called Israel Unlimited, and we're here for the frustration that the Minister of Tourism, Haim Katz, is not helping the industry, not the tour guides, not the agents, not the transportation. They're doing nothing. We have never received something special of tourism. It's just the normal subsidies for expenses, and it stopped in December. There's so many things that the minister can do with the tour guides that are educated and academic. They can help with the Israeli PR. We demand a special funds, such as the industry of agriculture. When there is a year of drought, they have special funds. We are in a year of drought, and we need his help.
The reason we gathered at the moment is that the minister is about to walk in. So if we end up hearing lots of noise in the middle of this interview, it's because your protest has begun. How badly has your industry been affected over the last 6 months?
Well, I can tell you that up to last month, which is 5 months from October 7, I did not insert 1 shekel. 5 months, and I keep my employees at work, because if I let them go, this is people that have been working with me for years. It's going to take me more years to find and educate the new ones. So we don't have any funds to keep those employees, and I'm paying for my own pocket. We don't have any funds for marketing. If I don't market Israel now, 2025 is gone, not only 2024. If I don't get any funds, I have to think, what do I do? Where do I shift to another industry? Tourism industry was the 6th most important industry of foreign income to Israel. It's not only the matter of Minister of Tourism, it's the Ministry of Finance, it's the Ministry of Negev and the Galil, because 25% to 50% of the employees in the peripheral, in the north and south, come from tourism.
Do you think that the government has helped some industries at the cost of others? So the hotel industries, all the hotels are full with people that have been saved from the rockets in the north. If you look at El Al, their insurance was underwritten. They made record profits last year. Why have they helped some parts of the tourism industry and not others?
The whole of Israel is about groups of power, unions and stuff, and we are not united. Even here, when we're going to do a protest, it's mostly the tour guides. The hoteliers are not joining, tour operators are not joining. When I tried during COVID to do a protest, the first thing we did was to unite everyone. There's over 2 trillion shekels coming from the tourism industry. And what I demand from the minister is that he create a safety network like you have in a drought of agriculture. It's something that even we can pay. It's insurance. So that's what we demand. We demand him to speak to us. He never speaks to no one.
Thank you so much.
This is Mark Gordon from the Jerusalem Post Podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Mark David Pod. or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome to the stage Israel's Minister of Tourism, Mr. Haim Katz.
The protesters are booing the minister who's about to speak. This opening ceremony has already become incredibly political about the economic stature of this industry. The minister is requesting for the protesters to be quiet. He's talking to them in Hebrew to try to persuade them to be quiet so that he can actually make his point. This is very unusual for a tourism expo. What he's saying is that the people here are protesting, they're protesting legitimately. There was a question whether they should abandon his appearance today, but he said no, he wants to stand in front of the protesters. And he said he's reading the signs that say that Minister Katz shouldn't put an end to tourism. He's saying that he understands their problems and it's something that has to be dealt with. What he's saying is he understands this importance of the financial imperative for the protesters, and he says that's why having this expo, the 30th IMTM, is so important, and bringing back the airlines and the foreign companies into the country is so crucial at this time. The lady you can hear now is shouting that the minister is a liar. We're getting very, very political. The woman is talking about the problems within the current government and repeating the word lie. Sheker, shakran, the words for liar. This really is unprecedented that there are such protests at an event that is purely here to promote tourism within Israel. It'd be very interesting to know what the foreign visitors are thinking about all of this. We've got ambassadors from various countries here, the tourism representatives of Azerbaijan and Panama, El Salvador, India are all here, and they must be watching this with considerable interest and bemusement. And of course the speech is being given in Hebrew, which means that for many of them they don't understand what's going on. So it will be interesting to hear their take afterwards. Mark, while I was in the melee, I've managed to get out. What was going on? Did you look at all at some of the international visitors? Were they looking around and thinking, what the heck?
Yeah, I was at the back, obviously near the bar, meeting with a contact of ours.
Contact? You make it sound like aspiring.
Shh. And I knew what was going to happen roughly, but the minister didn't speak until about the third speaker, because all of these events have to have 5 speakers talking forever. And you knew when the minister got on because the volume went up and you couldn't hear what he was saying. I think he even read out what was on their protest things and tried to sort of parody it. I think there seemed to be a lack of self-awareness because the protesters got more angry.
So, actually, he wasn't parodying. He was actually trying to be sympathetic, but it had the reverse effect.
I think sympathy here is parody because he's not actually sympathetic, because we're 6 months in and these people are struggling for their careers at the moment, their businesses.
I'll just make one more comment on this, and then I promise you we're going to move away from the politics because that's not our thing. But I did think it was very interesting that he chose not to speak in English, given that there were visitors from around the world and English is the international language of travel.
I think so, but then if you look at the presentations as well as the exhibition, there are a series of presentations here. I think only 2 of them are in English, whereas they're normally all in English. So this is very much a internal how to rebuild Israel focused exhibition, and I think the external tourism is kind of secondary.
Let's go and see if we can find somebody to talk to.
Israel is the startup nation, the scale-up nation, the unicorn country. Join me, Maayan Hoffman, Deputy CEO of Strategy and Innovation, for an analysis of the most critical Israeli tech innovations today. We'll highlight new tech trends, discuss the latest innovations, and interview at least one of Israel's most promising companies. So if you'd like to know what's on the cutting edge, then this Jerusalem Post show is for you. You can listen to Inside Israeli Innovation on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My name is Rajesh Rangaswamy. I am the country manager of Air India based out of Tel Aviv. I'm the country manager for Israel. I've put in 27 years in Air India, and basically I'm based out of Bangalore, recently posted in Tel Aviv.
We're going to get to know you better by asking you a series of quick-fire questions. What's the best holiday you've ever been on?
Lakshadweep, Agati Islands. I've been to all the 3-4 islands in the Lakshadweep, the Tinagara, the Bangaram, the Kalpatti. It's a beautiful place to be, and as you're aware, Mr. Narendra Modi is also trying to promote Lakshadweep as a tourist destination. So that's a great thing about our country and our islands.
What's a destination you would recommend for 2024?
In India, there are quite a few places. I mean, like you can go to Kerala, which is called as the God's own country. You can go to Goa, down south. Up north, I mean, like Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir should be in your bucket list, which is a fantastic tourist destination in India.
I know you've just got to Israel. Do you have a favourite place here yet?
I'm exploring the place. I've been only to Jaffa, the flea market, the Carmel market and all that. I'm just waiting for my family to be here in Israel very soon, and then I've got a big list of places that I wish to go to, and Dead Sea is one of my destinations that I'm looking forward to.
What about a bucket list destination you haven't been to yet?
I have not been to many parts of Europe, so I would certainly love to go to Switzerland, explore the Alps, UK, and probably even to San Francisco.
Have you got a funny travel story you can tell us?
In 27 years, I've been kind of flying in and out of India and then to many of the Southeast Asian countries. I have quite a few instances, but the funniest thing that happened to you is when you miss a connecting flight and then you're stranded.
I tried desperately not to let that happen. Mark, have you ever done that?
I nearly did it once in Turkey. You've never seen me run that fast before. How do people get in contact with Air India and book tickets?
We have our dedicated booking office here in Tel Aviv on the Ben Yehuda street. It's called as the Open Sky. They are our GSAs. So you can always reach out to me by mail. My mail ID will be mgr.tlv@airindia.com.
Thank you so much.
The pleasure is all mine.
Have you listened to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition yet? Hi there, I'm David Harris, and together with co-host Mark Gordon, we bring you the very best of the world of travel.
We've had our safety instructions and we're in a basket.
Either the cars are shrinking or we're going higher.
Now sat on a high chair.
You're listening to the last will and testament of Mark Simon Gordon.
We're in the independent micronation of Ujupis.
If I wasn't married, I'd be chasing away your indigenous 78-year-old and taking you for myself.
The drink afterwards, just to calm my nerves, will be number one, but this is definitely up there.
The Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition brings you the joys of travel and tourism. So why not subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts? Oh, lunch was good.
Lunch was good if you like Barekas.
I had a very nice camembert sandwich, which was actually marketed to me as being Gouda, but let's not fuss. Oh, I have to say, during one of our meetings, we had Azerbaijani tea, and that was really good.
I still haven't had any wine yet, but the Azerbaijani pastries, we should go there at some point.
When we came in, we were quite negative about the fact that there's issues with tourism here, that it's only a small exhibition compared to previous years. But looking around, it's absolutely packed.
They were talking about a rebirth of Israeli tourism. Normally the exhibition hall is split between foreign destinations and Israeli destinations. It's not quite that clearly demarcated this time, but there is sort of an Israeli side of the hall. And it's busy. There are a lot of people there. The marketing techniques are very different. There's no real appointments. You turn up, there's lots of wine, and therefore people turn up. And then they say, are you a tour guide? And if you say no, then they move on to the next person. But it's heaving, and they are really making an effort to promote certain regions. I know when we've been here in the past, there are more regions here. It's very selective regions. The Negev is here, the Galil is here, Jerusalem is here. But other than that, it's not full of central regions, small cities. I think Netanya's here, but it's only got a small booth.
Ashdod, I think, said there's a few. So tell me something. Do you know what Cherkessim are or is?
I know that there used to be a Cherkassi footballer who played for Israel, who was the captain, and he was one of the best footballers Israel's had.
What was his name?
Bibras Nachto.
Well done.
Probably horribly mispronounced.
One of the joys of living in Israel despite what you may read, is the multi-ethnicity that we have here, not just within the Jewish world, but there are a whole range of races and religions and ethnicities here, and among them are the Druze that we've talked about a little bit in the past, and also a group called the Circassians, or as they say in Hebrew, the Cherkessim, who came from the Caucasus, I believe, the mountain people who wounded their way around the Middle East and ended up predominantly in the Galilee, the Golan area, and their villages are very well worth visiting. And maybe in an upcoming podcast, we'll take you into that world.
I remember when we started doing this, there was a small conflict between Israel and Gaza in 2021. And when that settled down, one of the first things we did is we went up to Nazareth, and then we did a food tour of some of the villages. And we went Druze, we went Christian, and then we went Muslim. And they're such welcoming places. You don't get any sense of mistrust, any sense of what's going on in Gaza at the moment. And I think it's important to go and visit these places and show that Israel is one country. And from a tourism point of view, they're a lot of fun as well.
On that score, and we're not being paid to mention this, we haven't been asked to mention this, if you do want to go up to those villages and do this food tour where you go into the kitchens and cook with local people of different ethnicities, have a look at the website galileats.com. We'll be back in a minute or two with another guest. You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast Travel Edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod, or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com.
My name is Florian Senkschmidt. I'm the CEO of the Azerbaijan Tourism Board.
What's the best holiday you've ever been on?
In a mountain hut, just like enjoying the sunrise and no mobile connection, and just like enjoying great food and hanging out with friends. You know, it's like on a bonfire, shared basically hut with a lot of good people around. I think that was the best vacation.
Somewhere you'd recommend to travel to for 2024?
Obviously, that's Azerbaijan. That's Baku. Even if it's for a short weekend only, it's a great destination.
We've seen you a few times at IMTM, so we know that you know Israel a little bit. Your favourite place in Israel so far?
Is beachside. I just love watching, it's like what people are engaging with at the seaside is like whether this is playing volleyball or just running or looking around, sitting around, smoking, drinking. For me, is a special Tel Aviv vibe.
Where's somewhere that you've not been to that you want to go?
I think I would love to go to Peru. That's on my bucket list.
Finally, a funny story.
When I was still in my student years and I was hosting a big conference in Vienna, I was in charge for one hotel, and a lady came down in her swimming suit and asking me the way to the beach. And I said, listen, what beach you're talking of, like in Vienna? And it's like, she said, no, I want to go to the beach. I want to head for a swim. I said, listen, you want to go to the Danube River? There is like a river beach. And he said, no, the beach is like sand. He's like, where is the sea? And I said, in Vienna, there is no beach. He said, I'm not in Vienna, I'm in Venice. So from that story, I wish that we all would be more cultural open and where we travel to and embrace really the destination.
What a superb story.
How do people find out more about Azerbaijan travel?
Azerbaijan.travel is the source to be online, but there is a lot of great partners here in Israel who are working and promoting the destination, and where you can get more detailed info.
Time to travel, David.
After all of that, yes, absolutely. Now, despite all of our negativity and whatever at the start, there really are some amazing, amazing places to visit around the world and in Israel. And bottom line, this really is a way to promote Israeli tourism. And you and I might be disappointed that we're not getting a trip to wherever it is because they haven't got a stall here this year. But glamping, going to visit, as we said, Circassian villages, the red bus that's being introduced now in Jerusalem as a tourism travel thing, it's returning to the streets. There's a lot here.
The liqueur. Ooh, place.
Yes, Srigim or Leon, just south of Bet Shemesh. We discovered a little man, literally a little man, handing out little bits of liqueur, and hopefully it's something that we might do ourselves in a visit in an upcoming podcast.
If we look back on today, it's a mix. There's a lot of positives, a lot of really good people who care about Israel, who came to Israel, who wanted to show their support and not abandon Israel because of what was going on, and came to this exhibition. At the same time, it was a smaller exhibition. talking to one or two of the exhibitors, they were hoping potentially for a bit more help to attract people. They could have brought 3 times as many people if the exhibition organisers had helped them. There was a little bit of frustration here.
Some of the people we spoke to at the end, just as things were quietening down, and the guy from NCL, cruise company that we featured previously on the podcast, said it's been a good day for him. We met with an ambassador from a country in the Americas who was saying how much his country has to learn from Israel, including Israeli tourism, and how much they're looking to implement from the Israeli learning curve in his own country. And of course, he's also looking for investments in hotels and so on as his country looks to expand.
And there were new people here, people we'd not met before, talking about future destinations, which hopefully we can bring you in 12 months' time, 24 months' time.
When you said new people, are we talking about like little kids running around in diapers?
They had smooth skin. They weren't wrinkly and old like us. But, people new to us, countries new to us, and hopefully over the next 12 months we will take you to new places. We think we've got a couple of trips lined up that we'll tell you about in the future.
You have to tell me.
On the back of today. Well, I'll tell your wife first to make sure that you're allowed out to play.
And my work wife as well. She's got to give permission.
I thought I was your work wife. I'm your play wife.
I've got so many wives. We don't need to go there. It's David and the Merry Wives of Windsor.
The Bigamy podcast is brought to you.
Okay, before we go places we don't want to go, our handle on social media is @MarkDavidPod. The email, should you wish to complain to us, is markdavidpod@gmail.com.
And when you say places we don't want to go, are you talking about one particular exhibit today or just... If you enjoyed this podcast and any of our other podcasts, give us a 5-star rating, write lots of nice things about us, and go back through our back catalogue where there are probably about 80 podcasts.
Wow.
It can keep you going for 3 days straight.
Without food.
Or showering.
Can you imagine they'd lose the will to live about a third
They'd need
of
a
the way
holiday
through.
afterwards.
Oh my God. Anyway, that's enough of all those types of things. Folks, have a wonderful, wonderful couple of weeks till the next time we join you or you hear us.
We'll see you soon. Except it's a podcast, so we won't see you. You'll hear us.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.